from the very beginning, we really wanted to create something that was more of a poem and a meditation. And we really wanted to create a cinematic experience. And so we decided early on that we weren't going to see our subjects talking. We could see them in their space and we would hear their voices, but we wanted to really focus on the visuals that we were capturing and the places that we went to and the stories that we were telling. So that was absolutely something that we wanted to do from the very beginning. As well, we wanted to use photographic techniques that really showcase the places that we were filming in. So, we used a lot of, our cinematic approach was such that we were using, as you saw, a lot of drone footage and we experimented with speeds and stop motion and macro and we really wanted to, I guess, capture some of the things that we were talking about in a way that was fresh and really cinematic.
Yeah, we wanted to try to create a different approach than what you often see with documentaries, and to reach people in a different way. And also, we wanted to explore some of the psychological and emotional aspects of climate change, and art helps with that. And wanted to get us not just in the head so much, and not just throwing knowledge, but we also wanted to include knowledge in it as well, and information. Yeah. With the NFB, it's not. There's a fair number of elements shot in Canada, but with the NFB, it's not necessarily that it's shot in Canada so much as it's a more of a Canadian perspective. So it's very much a POV film, and it's an artistic film, so that's enough to make it a Canadian vision. But we did, we weren't sure where we were going to shoot. We didn't know what was going to happen. And we did end up focusing a lot on the California drought. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. And so that just became a climate event that was happening, and it was unfolding in kind of real time as we were making the film. As well, Vanuatu, which was the very first shoot that we did. We knew what we wanted to cover, but we didn't know what was going to happen during the production period. So events happened, and we just kind of went and explored and captured them.
And also, our key creative team are all Canadian. So in that sense, it's a fully Canadian production, and the Canada Media Fund is also involved, and the OMDC.
Ontario Media Development Corporation, which is provincial funding in Ontario. We're very fortunate in Canada. We were able to piece this together, and we had a broadcaster that was one of the key components that gets everything funded in this country. But you never know. The film is a challenge to get funded. You got to start from square one. But we had a vision that we wanted to do something high production values. We wanted to shoot it in 4K. We wanted something that could be really powerful on a big screen. So we're really glad one in the audience to see it in a nice big screen. Actually, I wanted to mention as well, on an aside, that Nova and I are both alumni of Concordia. We both studied communication.
Yeah, at different times, but we both did the same program, and our earliest work, some of our earliest work was projected in the same theater that you're sitting in right now, a few years ago. I think it was a combination. We did a lot of research, and we also had people suggesting ideas to us. And also, as we were filming, we discovered things along the way, and we talked to people. And so I think it was a combination. We also had a researcher on board who came on board at a certain point in the production. So it was a number of elements, everything combined, and it's kind of like being a detective. You uncover one clue and it leads to another one and another one, and so it's kind of like the discovery of the story as we went along. Oh, actually, I also want to mention there's someone in the audience, I understand, who worked on the film, Caroline Sancartier. Are you there? She filmed with us in Milan when we were filming Bosco Verticale, and she was really instrumental in that shoot, so I just wanted to name her.
I think that, this whole question around food is really, really important for climate change. And one of the key elements is to try to eat anything that we can as close to home as possible. Because anything that's coming in is using a lot of fossil fuels to travel. And so that's why we really have to start figuring out, in an urban situation, how do we grow our food in urban gardens? It's possible. We can grow most of our food in a very close proximity. You can see that in cities that have been doing it for many years, like Havana. Of course, they have very different growing conditions, but they're able to feed their entire city just within the city perimeter because they had to, because of the embargo. But we're just finding more and more that there is the innovations that allow us in various climates to become more and more self-sufficient closer to home. And I think that kind of approach is really key in general in so many ways, on every level, actually. Sure, I think it's an ongoing challenge for us at every level. I mean, the biggest thing for us was, having a child. When we started shooting this film, around the same time we conceived of Metamorphosis, we also conceived of our baby Phoenix, and he actually came on the shoot with us. And it really brought it home that this was the world he was going to inherit. This was the future. And how do we live our values, and how do we constantly, so that's something that I think every one of us is working on different levels.
Yeah. Just having a child is kind of a statement of hope for the future. And making a film with a child, it consistently brought up questions for us throughout the course of making the film. Why are we making this film? How are we preparing him for the future? And what is our role here? So that comes up every day, and certainly since starting the film with him. But
our personal lives, I think one of the biggest things is having a plant-based diet. In terms of like a simple personal, that's how we are and that's what we live. But that would be tremendously significant if people switch to a plant-based diet. Things like being conscious of consumerism, our consumer habits. It's so difficult, it seems, to avoid overconsumption in our society. You almost have to force it away. And so that's a big thing that we constantly are asking ourselves, do we really need this? And if we do need something, is this going to last? If I'm going to have to buy something that I need, will it last me my lifetime, ideally?
Also, slowing down. We talk a lot about it in the film, degrowth. And it's something that, we moved to the country recently. We live in Gibson now. We lived in an urban setting before. So, that's an adjustment that I've actually never lived in the country before. So, in terms of slowing down and really focusing on community and taking the time to really focus on what really matters and relationships, that's something that's shifted a little bit, a lot.
Well, Joe Delbosky is an industrial farmer, but in fact, most of his farms are actually organic, which is one good thing. But the use of the soil in the Central Valley, it's not sustainable long term, and but we do have a lot of people to feed. So I think we're back to this idea of trying to find new ways to grow our own food closer to home, to grow it ourselves. and to also adapt to not demanding that we have the same thing every season, and accepting that there's going to have to be changes to the diet when seasons change, instead of wanting things all winter that have to be imported. You know, these are changes. Like Joe says, he grows what consumers want. So we have to change the demand. But one thing, you know, we've been talking a lot about personal change, but you know, the big corporations have a lot of power, and we have to also really take them on. So we need to do the yes and the personal change and everything, but we also really need to be vocal and stand up and resist. So it's both a yes to what's new and also resistance and to what has to change. And you know, we are capable of changing, but we have to accept that we're in an emergency situation, and so that's the big challenge, I think, because it's just really recognizing that this is an emergency and not getting paralyzed by it, not falling into psychic numbing, shutting down, but finding the energy to transform. And I think that society has transformed in the past. We've been through some massive shifts, and this is calling us to transform. And the fact of the matter is, climate change or not, the industrial military complex is destroying the planet and destroying our souls. So we do need a new paradigms that gets us away from this model of what's the meaning of life, to consume. I hope not.
I just wanted to let you know and share with you that Velcrow and I have been developing a workshop called Metamorphosis Journey that we've been offering in various places that we've shown the film. And it's a way for people to come together and personalize the crisis and work through some of the grief that we're experiencing, as well as creating a vision or discovering their vision for what they'd like to see happen in their communities.
Yes, and there's the structure of the workshop is the same as the structure of the film, and it's kind of an invisible structure, but it's probably interesting for you to know.
Yeah, so we would start in the chrysalis phase, which is, you know, where we're all caterpillars, we're eating everything in sight, with the chrysalis being a place of new beginnings where anything can happen. And then from there, we move into crisis, which is the wake-up call. And then from crisis, we move into catharsis, which is the shedding of the old and the working through the grief and moving through the grief into symbiosis, which is mutually enhancing relationships between ourselves and with the planet. And then from there into metamorphosis. So we don't actually label those sections in the film, but that was our invisible scaffolding that we used to develop the arc.
We want to set out a film that was Climate Change 101. We did want to start with people just with us. We weren't going to argue that, for example, that climate change was happening or not. We weren't going to waste our time on that. We really wanted to start from a place where we feel that people are getting to. You know, and you have to kind of predict when you're making a film where the zeitgeist is going to be. You know, being in British Columbia this summer, we were choking on wildfire smoke all summer. And you know, the presence of climate change is literally in the air. And so people are doing a lot of thinking about that. So we didn't want to start as if it was something that people weren't aware of already. And we didn't go into the science. You know, we'd love you to see This Changes Everything, Naomi Klein and Avi Lewis's film. It's a great complement to this film. And many other films. There's a Youth Unstoppable is coming out right now. Our friend Slater Jewel is just released her film. That would be a great complement to this too. That's about the youth climate movement. I mean, climate change is such a massive issue, and there's so many dimensions to it that we need a lot of voices. We need a lot of different ways of exploring. And for us, we wanted to bring art into the picture because we don't see that very much, but we feel like the art can open us up in a different way. And we need the artists. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody. And that's one of the great things about this crisis is that you can plug into it in a way that is your, makes your heart sing or involves your expertise, because there's so much that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And with the solutions that we highlight in the film, those stories, they're really meant to be design principles that spark the imagination and inspire us to imagine what we can do and what's possible. So we really wanted to add to the conversation that way, and like Velcrow mentioned with the art as well, it communicates the issues in a different way. And there are a lot of films about climate change, and we need them all. So hopefully this will speak to people in a way that's
Yes, they become living, breathing coral reefs. And he's thought it through quite a bit because he's been doing it for years, but it's designed to really be enhance habitats in places where there isn't the kind of structures that inspire and seed coral reefs.
A lot of them were in Mexico, close to Isla Mujeres and Cancun, off the coast of Cancun. And then he was also working in his studio in the Canary Islands.
And if you want to learn more about Jason DeCare Taylor's work, you can go to his website. It's underwatersculptures.com. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And the film doesn't address Donald Trump, and it doesn't have but there. I mean, as you may have noticed, the film's packed with everything we could fit in it. It's not intended to be the only film on the subject, and one of the things that it is, though, is that it is also talking about systemic change and bottom-up change. And our previous film, Occupy Love, was all about social movements. So, and it was also, it was dealing more with people fighting the power. And this is a different film. So every film has a different focus in it. You can't do it all in one film. So, but I would encourage you to see Occupy Love, and this changes everything as well.